Howdy, everybody, and a very pleasant game day to you wherever you may be. Welcome into the TexAgs Tailgate Show, brought to you by Duck Camp. The Fighting Texas Aggies are finally back at Kyle Field after 35 days away. They're ranked third in the country. They're 9-0. They're 6-0 in conference. And this week they'll take on the South Carolina Gamecocks and battle for the coveted Bonham Trophy here in Week 12. Last year in Columbia, South Carolina, the Aggies slumped to a 44-20 loss. A&M was ranked 10th in the country back then. And now Mike Elko and company are looking to enact a little bit of revenge on Shane Beamer and company. South Carolina has slumped to a 3-6 record. They're 1-6 at SEC play. But if you are overlooking a team that is quarterbacked by Lenora Sellers, that would be unwise of you. As I mentioned at the top, this is the TexAgs Tailgate Show brought to you by Duck Camp. My name's Richard Zane, and we appreciate you guys tuning in this morning because we know you've got plenty of options for pregame college football coverage, whether that be game day, big noon kickoff. We appreciate you joining us here on the TexAgs Tailgate Show. Over the next 30 minutes, as we're now 90 minutes away from kickoff between A&M and South Carolina, here's what you can expect from our show. In just a couple of seconds, we'll go out live to David Nuno, who is at Kyle Field. Warm-ups are underway. The energy around Kyle Field and in Aggie Park is beginning to build. We'll check in with the TexAgs Director of Content and the host of TexAgs Live in just a few moments. Other than that, we'll also give you some players to watch, some update on some player squares courtesy of Prize Picks, an update of the SEC Student Athlete Availability Report, which has just dropped, and we'll also give you some pregame predictions as well. But with that, as we are about to go to David Nuno, let's pay some bills and give some much appreciation to Duck Camp jumping on as the presenting sponsor of the TexAgs Tailgate Show this year. Whether you're hunting birds at sunrise or flipping burgers before kickoff, Duck Camp's got you covered this fall. Check it all out at duckcamp.com. Built for the outdoors, designed for everything else. And it is an 11 a.m. kickoff, and for most that would be a problem. But when you get up at 4 a.m. each morning to go run 11 miles and drink 8 cups of coffee, not a problem for this guy. David Nuno, good morning, sir. Look out, there's a big guy behind you.
Yes, there is, and my good friend Shane Beamer walked by us just a few minutes ago as well. We made eye contact. I might have been the guy he was talking about after that look he gave me. But, Richard, we're here in a kind of a windy Kyle Field, and my walk here, I thought was a little quieter than I was expecting. The 11 a.m., I think that, it's going to be 107, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a great, great atmosphere. But I think a late arriving tailgating crowd is what I felt on my way here. But that's all right. The vibes are good. The team is looking good. And we've already seen a bunch of the starters out here getting some work in.
Yeah, the drive in the college or the office, from South College Station was really easy on a game day. It was a little eerie almost, but the 12th man's going to turn out because they haven't seen their Aggies in over a month. It's been since October 11th that we were all together at Kyle Field. I mean, a lot has transpired since then. A&M went 3-0 on the road. What can you tell us about how A&M has progressed and improved over the last month, the last 35 days since the 12th man's seen their Fighting Texas Aggie team?
Well, let's think about that. That game was the Florida game the last time we saw them here, and that's when Le'Veon Moss got hurt. Flip the script to a year ago. Le'Veon Moss got hurt against South Carolina. That's where the season went south. The defensive issues started to crack even more. Offense was not a problem, but it wasn't the same efficient offense, right? So you fast forward to this season, and what you've seen is a team that has not missed a beat without Le'Veon. Now, they could absolutely use him the rest of the way they need him. But the difference is the depth and also the veteran leadership on this team. It was a brand new staff last year. This year, it is a staff and a team that understands the culture and what is expected. And what we've seen this team do is go on the road and take on some teams. And yes, there was a shootout against Arkansas. But other than that, some beatdowns of ranked teams that are now not in that same conversation because of what Texas A&M was able to do. Now, what do? They come home for 2 games before they finish it off in Austin. They got to exercise another demon in beating a South Carolina team that ended all their dreams and hopes last year.
Yes, you mentioned they ended all their dreams and hopes. They lost 44-20 in that game. A big reason why was because they could not tackle Lenora Sellers. He went for 350 total yards of offense, 3 total touchdowns. The key to this one, and I know South Carolina is not the same team that they were a year ago. They're 3-6. Last year, they kind of pushed to make the college football playoff late, were ultimately left out. What is the key to stopping Lenora Sellers today for Elko and company?
Tackling low, not tackling high. If you watch some of the lowlights, I won't call them highlights from last year's game, there were several opportunities to get to Lenore Sellers. They touched him and they bounced off. Part of that is because he was having this Bo Jackson Tech Mobile effect on the Aggie defense. The other part was I just don't think their technique was sound. This year's team, they've been more of a gang tackling team. And I really think the key to it is getting to him low. This offensive line has struggled. I believe that South Carolina is giving up 33 sacks on the year. A&M's got that many, or maybe it's 32, and A&M's got 33 sacks to lead the nation. And the ability to get to Lenore's mid-size to low, I think, is the key in this one, because he's such a big, strong guy. If you try to tackle him by his shoulder pads, he's going to wave you off very easily. So just get him low. And I think they're also, this game, look, it's, in sports, we use the term personal often, and it is absolutely personal, right? But it's personal for different reasons. They know that that's where the downside started last year. They've got to exercise those demons, as I mentioned, to start off this hip. And I believe they're going to be tackling with a purpose. They always tackle with a purpose, but I think there's a deeper meaning in this game.
So easy to just highlight the two quarterbacks, but in this one, they are the two X factors for their offenses. Lenore Sellers, as he goes, South Carolina goes. For Marcel Reed, he's got a movement that's currently sweeping the nation, and it might be the cause of the wind this morning, the chills, as you mentioned. Marcel Reed, what can he do to further his Heisman campaign today? And also, just your thoughts on Chance, man, and Chance as in Marcel Reed, Marcel Reed.
So first off, I believe that Marcel Reed is living the life that Lenore Sellers thought he was going to be living this year. Right? That's basically what we're talking about, right? Marcel has swept the nation with his incredible play. He's a Heisman Trophy finalist as of today, in my opinion. Not that that's a scientific poll, but I think most people have him in their top 3 or 4, if not 5. And Lenore Sellers was expected to be that guy. So the whole thing that Marcel has done is he doesn't have to be the reason A&M wins, but he can be the reason that A&M wins. And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, that can hurt him in a Heisman vote, because people are like, well, he's really, really good, but he's got so many pieces around him. And that's what I think makes Marcel so dangerous, is the fact that he knows he can take over a game, but he's also going to allow his playmakers to take over the game. And I'm going to tell you, I think a grassroots marketing campaign that starts organically from the students is the way you capture a country's attention. And I think it's going to go a long way, especially if Marcel gets this team to 12-0. He will not only be a finalist, he may win the whole darn thing.
You mentioned the playmakers and the people he has the ball to distribute. Mario Craver listed as a game time decision on today's SEC Student Athlete Availability Report. If number 1 can't go today, David, how do you think that will impact or adjust Texas A&M's offensive game plan?
I think that Terry Bussey would probably get that spot. That being said, ABR would probably get more looks. But me that Mario's going to give it a go today. I did not see him personally, but some folks on the staff did see him in the pregame warmups, having the music in his headphones and just feeling himself, if you will. So I would not be surprised if that game time decision is truly a game time decision. He's trying to give it a go, and I would not be surprised. Now, here's the thing, though. Coach Elko could be like, look, we don't need you to make it any worse, so why don't you sit this out? But he's giving, in my opinion, he's going to give it every go he can.
Another guy who's going to be out this week, Mario Craver, game time decision today. Somebody who is out again this week, Scooby Williams, the linebacker, not playing for, I believe, a second consecutive game. But Damian Sanford's been fantastic filling into that role. He's a 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Week. The Aggie defense is really, really good, regardless of what the CFP committee will tell you. David, I know we talked about tackling low on Lenora Sellers, but he's also got a couple of weapons to get the ball to, thinking of Nick Harbor first and foremost. What's key for A&M's defense to stopping the South Carolina attack as a whole?
Not allowing a play to develop, right? The ability for Cassius, Ryland, and the whole gang, Dayon Hayes, to get to the backfield. Now, he does not have a lot of time to throw this year. That offensive line has been putrid for South Carolina. So, in my opinion, do not allow playmakers to have time to develop in their routes. And that's going to take, being able to be sound in your gap coverage and attacking Lenore's as quickly as you can. And then somebody to pay special attention to, I mentioned it on the show yesterday, Torian York did not have his best game last year against the Lenore Sellers. Watch for him to have a huge impact in today's game. I think Torian's going to have a big impact, not only for potentially spying him, but just that leadership that we saw last week, the ability to see what's happening and developing on an offense. I think Torian could be a big part of limiting not only Nicholas Harbor, but Lenore Sellers.
Linebacker play is going to be crucial for A&M to stop that big quarterback. And, of course, the secondary has been fantastic. They've been locked down they held Missouri to only 77 passing yards last week. Talk about Cassius Howe. He's the defensive lineman of the week again, a fourth time. How many sacks does he get today?
I'm going to go with 1.5. He's going to get, I'd like to say 5. That's what I'd like to say, but I'm going to try to be real here. This team does give up a lot of sacks. We knew that last year. It didn't work out so well. I think he's going to have the ability to get to Lenore's a couple of times, and one of those will be a combined sack with maybe Damian Sanford again.
Damian Sanford, DJ Searcy, Dayon Hayes, DJ Hicks, Albert Regis, Torian York. You name it, right? Well, we're sticking with predictions, David, on the way out. Give me an X factor to watch for and your score prediction for this one, Ags and Gamecocks.
All right, let's go X factor KC. That's such an easy cop-out, right? Like sometimes you want to think of somebody that it would surprise folks. But if Mario is limited, Mario Craver, if he doesn't go, they're going to rely on KC. Now, that may mean that they double him up a little bit, so I'll pull a Billy Lucci on you and give you ABR as my second option because that's you can't double team everybody, so somebody's going to come available, and I think that might be ABR. And defensively, how can we not go with Cassius Howe? You want to score? Let's go 38-20.
38-20. So 17.5 is the line, right? So that would be a cover. That's a good win. Obviously, it wouldn't be enough to boost A&M in the college football playoff rankings, but it would be enough to get us to 10-0 for the first time since '92 and a first 10-win season since 2012.
And this place will go nuts if that's the case, because then next week is a formality. You get to 11-0 and setting up maybe the biggest Texas A&M showdown in God knows how long. I have to go back and look at the history. Obviously, the last one that we remember that sucked. But there's been some amazing moments. But if it's a chance for Texas to get into the playoffs and for Texas A&M to win with an opportunity to get to the SEC championship, that could set up a huge one. But they got to worry about today. I'm trying to be a player at the moment because you got to represent the game, Richard.
Yeah, you got to go 1-0. You got to have that 1-0 mentality, David. I don't know if I'm doing too well with my 11 a.m. game prep. So when you get back to the office later this afternoon, we might need to compare notes, see how I get better for next week. I've only had 1 cup of coffee. I might need some more.
Speaking of which, I could use my second one now. I don't have 8 in the morning, okay? I have like 3.5, and then I have another 3.5.
That's pretty good, though. That's a lot. That's a lot of coffee. David, of course, thanks for tuning in and helping us out, and make sure you keep Dave Olin out of trouble.
You got it, Richard. Thank you. Great job, buddy.
That's David Nuno, the TexAgs Director of Content, host of TexAgs Live. You will see him post-game on Post-Game Wrap presented by TKO Equipment. He'll be joined by former players Brandon Leone, Chris Taylor, and Chris Harrington to break down everything you're about to see in Texas A&M versus South Carolina. Luke Evangelos is getting his mic in place. It's time to give you a final update of the SEC Student-Athlete Availability Report. Really nothing new to report on the Texas A&M side after being listed as questionable for the first 3 days. Mario Craver is now a true game time decision. Of course, that was reported by On3 yesterday, so not a real shock there. And then no surprises on the South Carolina side either. All 3 guys who are listed as out on their earlier reports are also out on the final report. And with that, we'll go into our players to watch now. For Texas A&M on the offensive side, I'm going to highlight one of those 2 that David Nuno mentioned. It's Ashton Bethel-Roman, the wide receiver. He's got 12 grabs for 242 yards this season and 2 touchdowns. He scored last week. He's getting more and more confident as the weeks go by. And if Craver is limited or out today, he's going to be a true second option for the first time in his career. He could have a true breakout performance if Marcel Reed's able to get him the ball 4 or 5 times today and let him run and be that true over-the-top threat that he was thought to be and talked about being during fall camp. on the defensive side, I've got linebacker Damian Sanford. I could have lumped Torian York in here because, like we talked about, the key is going to be tackling against Lenora Sellers, the big quarterback. You can't allow him to break tackles as he did a year ago. Linebacker play is going to be key. Sanford's got 38 tackles on the year, 18 solo stops, 8.5 DFLs, and 3.5 sacks. He was the defensive player of the week last week in the conference, looking for more of the same from number 27 on the defensive side of the ball today. When it comes to South Carolina, it's low-hanging fruit, but it is the quarterback. He's the engine that makes the cocky caboose go, right? Lenora Sellers, he has thrown for a 1,500 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's only rushed for 158 yards when you subtract sacks and 3 touchdowns. So 10 total TDs, 5 interceptions. Not great numbers for a guy that had so much fanfare and hype coming into 2025. But don't let that distract you because he destroyed you a year ago if you're Texas A&M. 350 yards of total offense, 3 total touchdowns. You lost 44-20 because you couldn't tackle this guy. A&M's defense should be fired up and looking to enact some revenge today. When it comes to the South Carolina defense, give me the defensive end, Dylan Stewart. He's got 30 tackles, 16 solos, 3.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Quiet all year compared to his billing, but he's just a moment away, one play away from changing a season. Dylan Stewart, the South Carolina defensive end. And with that, we're going to go ahead and give it to Luke Evangelos. He was up late last night watching Bucky ball. We'll talk about that in just a bit briefly. But with that, we want to get to some new player squares that have just come out for Texas A&M versus South Carolina. Reminder, Prize Picks is the best site to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use code TexAgs when you sign up and receive $50 once you play your first $5 in lineups. Mr. Evangelos, which squares have your eye today?
I'm looking at Casey Concepcion, longest reception, more than or less than 24.5 yards. You talk about that South Carolina secondary potentially breaking one open for Casey. Maybe he gets loose for a 30 to 40 yard gain or ABR over the top as well. How about Marcel Reed? As many times as you chant his name, you can find a new player square on Prize Picks for him. He's got his fantasy score set at 24.5. You can go more than or less than 42 yards for longest completion, 15.5 yards for his longest rush, 25.5 pass attempts, 17.5 completions, or you can play with yards and you could go more than or less than 224.5 passing yards. But the one that I really like is 276.5 passing plus rushing yards. Marcel using his legs has been a big X factor for A&M over the last couple of weeks. Remember, he had over 100 the other day against LSU, and maybe he can get some of that magic as people chant his name louder and louder as the game goes on. Mario Craver does have a number here on Prize Picks at 61.5 receiving yards, but I would advise people to maybe be a little bit cautious playing with that as he is a true game time decision. And if that play is in one of your lineups, it would just be canceled out. So let's say you had a 3-player flex play, including Mario Craver in your lineup, and he does not play. That would ultimately cancel out and just be a 2-player power play. Some touchdown scores for you. They've got Theo Mellon-Orstrom. They've got Terry Bussey. They've got Ruben Owens. They've got Ashton Bethel-Roman, Amari Daniels, Jamarian Morrow, Casey Concepcion. Pretty much anybody that's going to touch the ball for A&M, you can play with them to score on Prize Picks. And if you're feeling like Ashton Bethel-Roman might find the end zone today, that would result in upwards of a 5x payout. So a ton of value there on Ashton Bethel-Roman. And then you can go yards and longest reception, longest rush for guys like Ruben Owens, Casey Concepcion, and Marcel Reed.
Luke, we've kind of got some breaking news right now. Texas A&M has picked up its 6th commitment of the 2027 class as cornerback Raylon Henry, has committed to the maroon and white. If you are not on TexAgs.com right now, you're going to want to head over there. We're going to have plenty of news, some stories covering that commitment in just a couple of moments as Raylon Henry has joined Texas A&M's 27 class as the 6th member of that organization. Luke, let's go ahead and hear some some thoughts from some other people. We've had some guests on TexAgs Live throughout the week. Let's begin the day with some PB. The P is going to stand for positive. Of course, I'm just kidding. It's Peter Burns of the SEC Network. He has a special message to the 12th man. Embrace this, guys.
I mean, again, I don't even know what I'm eating for lunch here in about 15 minutes. I sure as hell don't know what's happening in probably the most chaotic college football season we've had in a long time. And so, yeah, I mean, that would be fascinating. I mean, it would be great for me and you as we work in media to talk about it. But, yeah, there'd be chaos. And then because then you start looking at, all right, is the ACC, I mean, are they a one-bid league? I mean, we saw Texas absolutely destroy and manhandle BYU. I don't see BYU getting that much better in being able to address that. So, is the Big 12 a one-team league or bid league? What happens if Notre Dame falls to Pitt? I think that's fascinating. So, I mean, there's a distinct chance we're talking about at least, we definitely are going to get 4 in from the SEC, maybe 5, potentially 6, which is wild. But to think that we're sitting here and it's the Aggies that are undefeated, like, you and I have had these conversations for years, and how Aggies feel probably is like how I felt as an LSU fan in 2003, where you're like kind of waiting for a shoe to drop. And then at some point you just realize, like, as an LSU fan, like, no, man, embrace this. This is as good as it'll ever get. No matter what happens, like right here, right now, the fact you get over the 8-4, the fact that you're right there in the thick of it, you're going to be in the college football playoff, like, embrace this as a fan, because this is as sweet as it'll ever get right now. And then you can just kind of ride the rest of it and have fun along the ride.
That's some morning positivity to get you going. If you hadn't had your coffee yet, just flip on the Peter Burns interview. He'll get you excited for A&M versus South Carolina. How about a former player's thoughts now? Let's go to the monster, Demontre Moore. He was on TexAgs Live on Thursday to talk about that defensive line. He knows a thing or two about great defensive line play, and he shared what he's seeing from a lights-out defensive front in 2025.
This D-line has been rushing out the wazoo, from keeping contained, from Cassius Howell doing his thing and the other defensive end, but then to them interior juggernauts that's been winning defensive linemen SEC week in and week out. We've had a multitude of guys, a slew of guys. When one guy got injured, another guy came in. And so the depth has to come in there, and you just have to stay fresh and stay healthy. And the biggest X factor that's going to help them right now is having a former player like Tony Gerard Eddy that is leading the boys. We've had the privilege of chasing down guys like Johnny Manziel in practice, Robert Griffin throughout his time there. So with us playing these these quarterbacks that have multiple aspects to their game, Tony's going to be able to talk to them about personal experience, but now from the coach's perspective. And you have a player leading men, and they've been playing lights out, leading the nation in sacks and TFLs the way that they're doing. I think him by the helms is what's going to be that X factor to help them keep contained.
One last bite to play for you guys. We're going to wrap things up with South Carolina grad, SEC Network anchor and host, reporter, the GOAT, Alyssa Lang. She had a pretty unique comparison for the A&M head man. Here's what she's seeing from Mike Elko as he's giving off maybe GOAT vibes.
The more I've gotten to know Mike Elko, the less I believe that trap game is even in their lexicon, if we're being honest. Billy, like, we were there, what was it, week 2 for Utah State?
Yeah.
And I'm watching him on the sidelines absolutely get after these dudes. And it's a double-digit lead on Utah State in the third quarter. And I went on the air the next week and I said, no one will ever be Nick Saban. Like, obviously Nick Saban is his own person and personality, and what he did worked. But in this day and age of a youth movement in college football and seeing so many young coaches and the game just change, Mike Elko gives me shades of what it was like watching Nick Saban coach those teams on the sidelines and get after those dudes when it was 45-3, because all that mattered was consistent excellence. And I see shades of that in Mike Elko. So as the season has gone on, I only get more and more confident in this Aggies team that, Billy, you know I was high on in the summer.
That's Alyssa Lang from the SEC Network. Appreciate her and all of the other guests we have on through TexAgs Live and other TexAgs pieces of content throughout the week. Never been a more perfect time to be a TexAgs subscriber. We've got a TexAgs subscription going on going on right now. If I want to check that out, texags.com YouTube.com/subscribe if you haven't already. Luke, if you could, do me a favor, please, and go through our games to watch this week from around the country and offer your insight as I handle some back-end responsibilities over the next minute or so. I should be back by the time you're done talking about horns and dogs.
Yeah, I think it is a crime that this Notre Dame Pitt game is at 11 a.m. I've been saying that all week, that I really would want to watch this game because Notre Dame really has not had much of a test since that early season run of Miami and A&M. They played USC pretty close at night, but as they kind of tend to get most of their big games late in the season at home, and now they're having to go on the road to Pitt. So really wish we could split screen that, but all our eyes will be on A&M. Alabama, Oklahoma is super interesting to me because Alabama had everything to play for last year and lost to a significantly worse Oklahoma team, and they were blown out, if anything. So how does Alabama handle it this year in a revenge game? And then Oklahoma is playing for their playoff life. You have to think that Brent Venables is going to have that group fired up. And John Mateer has not been the same quarterback since that thumb injury, but he showed out against Tennessee, and that defense is something serious. So I don't want to say it's a playoff eliminator for both teams, but you never know what's going to happen in the Iron Bowl. And I know for a fact that it feels like Oklahoma would be out with a loss here, but Alabama still has a lot to play for. Iowa and USC is just typical Big Ten football. I mean, first to 20 may win that game. I'm not exactly sold on Iowa, but
kudos to the Big Ten, man, putting their best matchup of the week on the Big Ten network. Fantastic job, you guys.
Great work, y'all.
Yeah,
seriously.
Who would want to watch a top 25 showdown when you can watch Michigan play Northwestern at Wrigley Field on Fox at 11 a.m.? Who would want that?
I mean, not any college football fan or sicko that I know, but I feel like USC should win that. The most intriguing match of the day has to be Duke and Virginia, because what's going on in the ACC right now, Duke, their record is not good, and yet most of their losses came in non-conference play. I believe they only have one ACC loss. So if they keep running the table, they may find a way to sneak into the playoffs with potentially 4 losses when most of those came in non-conference play. Duke could totally wreck the ACC. And then, of course, the one that everybody's going to have their eyes on, the Florida Ole Miss game. We know what happened last year. To be determined on what happens with Lane Kiffin, but just a very intriguing dynamic what's going on. Supposedly on social media, people getting wind of some certain coaching moves, and how does Lane respond trying to lead this Ole Miss team to the playoffs? And then finally, the game that I think a lot of people around the country will be tuned into at night is Texas, Georgia. Texas fighting for their playoff life. Georgia got a lot to play for as well, with Georgia Tech still on deck. So I don't know what's going to happen in Athens, but I know it's going to be a spectacle, and we'll see if trash is thrown on the field again this year.
Not necessarily a playoff eliminator in Athens tonight, but plenty of intriguing storylines, and you could certainly help your case by winning that game, regardless if you're Texas or Georgia. Some fun nighttime viewing for sure on this slate, this Week 12 slate in college football. Other games as they relate to Texas A&M, Luke, you might want to take your headphones off because I got to update the people on what happened last night at Reed Arena. Men's basketball dropped its second consecutive game, falling to UCF on Friday, 86-74. A&M went on a 17-3 run early in the second half. It looked like they were going to pull away. They led 52-38, and from there, they just kind of gave it away as UCF shot lights out from behind the arc. They shot 50% from deep, hitting 14 triples compared to A&M's 9. That was the difference in the game. Marcus Hill, a team-high 14 points for A&M, but UCF Jordan Burks had 21, 18 of which came in the second half. Next up for Bucky McMillan and company is a Tuesday date against Montana. They'll need to get back in the win column and show some serious improvements over their next 3 bye games before they go to Tampa on Thanksgiving weekend. Volleyball now. It's the regular season finale on Sunday at noon as 6th-ranked Texas A&M hosts Georgia at Reed Arena. The Ags are 21-3. They're 13-1 in conference. They've won 9 straight. They have the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament wrapped up, but just how much can they improve their seeding in the NCAA tournament? Jamie Morrison says you just got to keep winning. And then also on Sunday, women's hoops. Joni Taylor and company, they're 2-0. They'll be headed to Kansas State, the Little Apple, Manhattan, for a 1 p.m. tip-off on Sunday. You can catch that on ESPN Plus, excuse me. Now, Luke Evangelos, it's time to wrap things up here on this edition of the TexAgs Tailgate Show. Last week with my predictions, had a pretty good week. I went 4-1. I was very proud about that. The only thing I needed was A&M to pick off Matt Zollers. He didn't do anything, and by it not doing anything, he also didn't turn the ball over, which was upsetting. My predictions for this game against South Carolina. I keep getting burned by it, but I haven't learned my lesson yet. It's like a kid who keeps touching the stove. I'm going to take the Texas A&M secondary to pick off a pass today. Get me an interception, Ags. Please, I am begging you. I think they'll take one away from the Norris Sellers. And speaking of Sellers, my second prediction, I've got Cassius Howe drumping him twice. They're going to drop him a multitude of times. Cassius Howe is going to come away with at least 2 sacks. David Nuno took 1.5. I'll be a little more bold and take 2 full ones. Third, speaking of 2s, I'll take Reuben Owens to find the end zone twice against South Carolina today. Fourth prediction, Marcel Reed again playing turnover-free football. That would give me chills, man. Start the chants around the nation, sweeping the nation. Chills. And my fifth and final prediction, Ags, we're going to celebrate our first 10-win season later this afternoon after a victory over South Carolina as we regain control of the Bonham Trophy. Guys, I appreciate you if you tuned into this episode of the TexAgs Tailgate Show. We had some breaking news with Raylaw Henry committing to Texas A&M.
We could have some more breaking news.
What's up?
We could have some more breaking news.
What's going on?
A Ross Dellinger tweet says that Mike Elko and Texas A&M are finalizing a contract extension. So
awesome.
Maybe there will be more details on that in the coming hours.
Well, it sounds like we've got to go to work now. Luke Evangelos, appreciate you directing and producing this episode of the TexAgs Tailgate Show. Our thanks to Duck Camp for being our presenting sponsor. We'll catch you on the next one. Of course, keep it locked on TexAgs for more pregame, in-game, and post-game coverage as David Nuno will be right here for the post-game wrap presented by TKO Equipment. Until next time, beat the hell out of South Carolina.